Hello lovelies, I'm back, fresh with the winterization of my hair. I'm back to share the next stage of my House of Colour journey. Sorry, I'm just really cold today, so we'll pretend the jacket should be there. So I went to House of Colour to find out my clothing personality. I've done my colour analysis with them. You guys know I loved that process, and this is slightly different, yet connected still. So whilst the colour analysis takes into account the natural colouring with which you were born, like in your created form, your natural colours, the clothing personality is all about who you are on the inside and how it aligns with what you express on the outside, or how you express yourself. The idea is to find out your authentic style and then how you can best express that through your clothing. So the experience itself started with another early morning. Hang on, let me get my tea. Story time. Another early morning, we went to Sarah's, Hubsy and I. When we arrived, the first thing that Sarah did was to run through what clothing personality actually means, why it's useful to do it, what I can take away from the session, basically the foundations of what we're about to go into. And I think that's really great at prepping the person that comes in. I mean, I definitely was not prepared for it to be like that deep.
Not pretend that you know nothing. This is about refining it and perhaps offering you a slightly different perspective that may give you a slightly different blueprint, and that's what we want our clothing personalities to be. So we don't want them to be rigid rules that you have to follow. What we want them to be is we want them to behave like a blueprint for your style that carries through for your entire life. So I went through this process, as I mentioned. I had my colour analysis at 18, returned from my style analysis at the age of 19, and I've had that same blueprint all the way through my adult life. And what's been amazing is exactly what we kind of touched on earlier, is that it's not a case of conforming to what's in fashion at any given moment or point in time. It's about tuning into your style, which is more enduring. So how can we make you feel the most you that you've ever felt on a daily basis through your clothes, in a way that is relevant and contemporary, if that's important to you? Because of course for some people it really is important for them, but for others it isn't, and it works both ways essentially. I don't dress the same way that I did at all when I was 19 or in my 20s. I'm in a very different place now, and also things have moved on, but I still know the core fundamentals of what I need to do to make the best of my body and my figure and my personality, so that I'm dressing in a way that's really feeling authentic and true to who I am. And that's what I want to find for you today. How can we sum up exactly what your personality and your body structure needs? And your body structure doesn't tend to change too much over time, because we're looking at your bone structure rather than your clothing size.
I definitely wasn't prepared to pick up so many tips. It was more like you can just take away these extra tips to just fine tune what you're already doing. On the other hand, I know that had I gone to this like years ago, this would have been such an incredibly eye-opening experience, and every piece of information would have been new to me. Like the ideal starting point for someone who doesn't even know anything about colour analysis. So that's how she started off the session, with like framework. We didn't really touch on colour analysis because that's not what this session was about, but immediately it became apparent to me that colour analysis is literally all about your physical expression, right? Your actual phenotype, how your skin colouring is, and your eye colour and your hair colour. Whereas with this was more about your personality, like who are you, as well as your body architecture. So it was about everything on the outside as much as it was about everything on the inside. What I love most about the House of Colour way of doing things is that there's no shaming. Like I can be pretty like self-deprecating. Sarah knows what I'm self-deprecating about when it comes to my body, and she was just so reassuring. And I can tell you that by the end of this session, I felt even those things that you feel like a little bit self-conscious about, whatever, you walk away feeling so empowered, and you just love how you are, you know what I mean? Sarah took out this board, and on that board she had the 6 different, what they call archetypes for clothing personality. So House of Colour has these words that are definitely familiar if you're into clothing personality analysis, but I had to really leave all of my presumptions at the door, because House of Colour have their own definition, and these 6 archetypes join up to make 23 different clothing personalities. Yes, that's right, 23. Now, the whole idea behind giving so many options is that everyone is unique, right? And even if two people are the same clothing personality, they will still express it in different ways. Even if there are overlaps, they will have different lifestyles. They might be at different stages of their lives. All of this is stuff that you discuss during your session. The whole idea is about being inspired by your clothing personality label, if that's what you want to call it, rather than to feel restricted by it. Let me go through the Style for Women book. Yeah, like there's an actual workbook and you get to take it away with you. Mine's got like all these notes in it. I'm not going to go through every single page because obviously like it's their intellectual property and stuff, but I'm going to roughly go through some of the exercises that we did. So in this workbook, the first thing that we did was we looked at Crystal, who's one of the House of Colour stylists, and Sarah asked me what I see when I look at her. And I think this exercise is really important. I think it's something that we can all kind of reflect on in how we form judgments about people. We have subconscious judgments tied to what we're actually seeing. For me, I was just like, she looks like she's really chatty. I could probably sit and talk to her.
She's very well groomed as well. There's not a hair out of place. So, you'd be thinking, here's somebody who's perhaps got high standards or high attention to detail.
She knows herself.
She knows herself. So
yeah.
You have never met Crystal, but just from looking at a picture of her, you've got all of that.
And then we went on to objectives for the day. I've written her objectives but forgot to write mine. Pretty sure I said I'm really fascinated with like symbolism and how things are represented and how your thoughts and your personality is converted into an external expression and how there are psychological implications. I kind of shared that I would really love the knowledge of that as well. And of course, obviously to like fine tune what I'm doing and just to understand it better. And then we touched here on the importance of tailoring.
Because I think it's something that is massively undervalued in today's society. People expect things to fit them off the hanger. Sizing is arbitrary. You can be different sizes within the same shop, and like Zara is a prime example I think that most people can relate to. So what size am I today? Am I 6 or am I 12?
Yeah.
And it can even be like within trying on different pairs of jeans in the same shop or different
100%.
tops. So I try as much as possible to say to people, don't worry about the size on the label. And also, if something doesn't fit you, it's not a deficiency that you have. So it's not something that's wrong with you. It's actually the arbitrary sizing that they have decided this garment does not fit my fabulous body.
Find a great tailor or seamstress, someone that you can rely on, someone that you can take your clothing to on a whim. Sarah shared that she gets like 60 to 70% of her clothing altered. Then we came onto this page, which says how you want to be perceived. Now, on here, there is a list, 3 columns of adjectives as a person, as a personality, which ones resonate with me and which ones am I like, ooh, no. And so here again, we stopped and talked about, like, it became therapy again, why we feel drawn to certain adjectives or descriptions of ourselves potentially, and why we repel against some of them. So for example, for me, I put a tick against polished. I like the idea of being polished. Feminine, creative is ticked as well. And then I've got an X against cute, and this will tie in later with my clothing personality. When you have the experience of being perceived as being younger than your actual age, people can kind of think that you're naive and overtly vulnerable, or like you don't know what you're doing and you'll be questioned a lot more. We stopped to talk about that, and Sarah was not only really understanding but shared some insights on that herself, which I found super useful. Next, we came onto this page called Creating Interest, and we looked at again this lovely stylist here and talked about how she has created interest with her look, like with her glasses and her earrings. And then Sarah did this just visually wow demonstration of removing her points of interest. So she like removed her earrings and her necklaces, and then she removed her headband. And as she did these things, she was like, she could see it in me, because she said, I can see your face change in how you're looking at me. Not like in a negative way, but it's like I was just fascinated that all these different points of interest in her look were having such a big impact.
I mean, you're looking at me completely differently.
I'm just amazed that these things made such a difference.
And then as she was doing this, she was explaining the symbolism of what we wear as points of interest. A higher neckline denotes authority or strength or power. And then she linked it to how, for example, soldiers on a battlefield used to wear armor. And that's really what jewelry is. We talked about the symbolism of a watch and how a watch really communicates to people that you value your time and that you'll value their time. There are certain subconscious signals that we get from just looking at someone, and if they're accessorized in a way that truly and authentically lines up with who they are and their personality, it can be really, really impactful. So anywho, I could really go on and on about this. It's so fascinating.
And the most important thing that has the greatest impact is the lipstick. When you put lipstick on, it frames your words and it brings people up to your eyes, provided it's the right shade for you. So if I take that off, heels as well are another thing. The thing that I know what happens to me when I take back all of this, I know I look a lot younger.
Yes.
I look a lot more vulnerable.
It's both about the language of clothes, managing your wardrobe and how to organize your clothes, discovering your style, and then, okay, I'm not going to show you the whole page actually because I don't want to infringe on their copyright, but basically we spoke about body geometrics, okay? This is the real juicy stuff. Okay, I have to take my jacket off for this part. Okay, so you know that horribly outdated, self-loathing inducing method of categorizing women's bodies into fruits? The pear shape, the apple shape, we're going to chuck that out, okay? With body geometry, as House of Colour have used it, it's just a very literal way of looking at your body in terms of how would an artist draw you? If they were to draw the silhouette, the outline of your body, what are the shapes that they would use? And we all have different shapes that our bodies have been created in, okay? So our skeletal structure, that will determine what cuts suit you. So for example, you've got like an oval shape, got a circular shape, a rectangle shape, you've got a square shape. Oblong as well, which is like a rectangle but with like curved edges. Soft square, so a square but with rounded edges. You get the idea, right? So lots of different shapes. This is such a clear depiction of this methodology because you can see with this lady, on the top she's an upside down triangle and on the bottom she's a rectangle. And my shape was rectangle at the top, so hence like my sharpish shoulders, and oval at the bottom. And so for me, creating a break point like with a belt is effective. I know it's effective, but now I understand why it's more effective. Some people aren't two shapes. Then we looked at face shapes. We also looked at jaw angle, whether it's soft, medium or acute, and she said mine was acute. This is really good also because, and I think this is why you need someone to do this with you, because the way that we perceive ourselves is sometimes so different to like reality and it's not even about being objective, like it is or it isn't. See, I never paid attention to my neck, you guys. So here on neck length, you're either short, medium or long, and what she said was I'm medium to long, which I was like, maybe that's why I like chokers. I feel like I can get away with chokers and like slightly higher necklines because I've got a lot. I've never thought of myself as having a long neck, but there you go. Even a medium to long. I just thought I'm just... With all of these features combined, a V-neck or an angular neck can also look good. So as well as a high-ish neckline, also a V-neck / an angular neckline looks good. Or if it's a rounded neckline, the V created by a necklace, we then looked at proportion and balance. Now, talk about feeling self-conscious. This is where she took out the measuring tape and she started measuring my body. And I was like, okay, what are we doing here? And what she did was she measured my body in quadrants. So she split my body into 4, head to the bust, bust to the hips, hips to the knees, and the knees to the ground. We wanted to work out where my shortest quadrant was, the shortest and the longest. And shockingly, my longest was my legs. So like the bottom quadrant for me was the longest. And I was like, huh? Me, Amena, long-legged? Okay, I guess so. Yeah, so that makes sense why like tall boots I think look really good on me, like knee highs or thigh highs. My shortest quadrant, chest to the hips. Your shortest quadrant should never ever be over complicated. So keep it neat, keep it tidy in that area. And Sarah went into detail with the 6 clothing archetypes and also touched on how they can be combined to make the 23 clothing personality types that House of Colour uses. She used examples with celebrities and she spoke about why those clothing personalities would be how House of Colour would sort of categorize them.
On social media, it's just so reductive, isn't it? In
Yes.
that you just described 6, but there's 23
Yes.
in as part of
And that's why I'm saying for some people, not for everyone.
Yeah.
So it's again
It's
why
so broad, isn't it?
It's very broad. What I'm really interested to find out for you today is kind of what your yin yang balance is, how we combine this with the knowledge we have about your wardrobe and your body and where you come out. So we've got a checklist coming up.
We then went through one of my favorite topics, yin and yang. We use yin and yang as our scale to help measure personality traits objectively. Yin and yang is a concept of dualism. about this stuff, you guys. Like, for me, yin and yang is something that permeates the entire world. Like, we see it in nature, we see it in people, we see it in physical appearance, we see it in energies. There's just, oh, I just love it. And the fact that they've incorporated this into their categories is just really cool. It's independent of gender and non-judgmental. Everything has both a yin and yang. I'm going to move on to the checklist questions that we did next. So this checklist is all about figuring out how much yin and yang I have according to my personality, mostly. You're organized or tidy. They all are in the yang half or yin category, as I said. And guess what mine was, you guys? You topped them up at the end. It was out of 20, and guess what my proportion was of yin and yang in the 20? Exactly 10 and 10. I was half yang and half yin. And Sarah actually said that was the first time that's ever happened during one of her sessions. So there you go. I like to change things. I like to mix things up a bit. We talked about how that plays into my clothing personality, and that's when she did the reveal. So my clothing personality is, drumroll please, even though you've seen it in the title, Romantic Ingenue. I know you can't see this properly, but that is the sheet that she gave me, loads of notes. So this means I'm an ingenue, which is a category I haven't heard of before, and my type is romantic. So romantic is all about drama, it's about creativity, it's about glamour, and ingenue is more about the neatness and having a more polished look and keeping it more youthful. Now you're speaking my language. I'm not shocked now. I was expecting to be shocked like I was with the color analysis, but this I was not shocked. I was just like, yeah, you're right. Yes, tell me more. Why am I this way? Oh, that's why I'm drawn to that. And here Sarah touched upon the fact that romantics can often wear makeup and enjoy makeup, and they can get away with it like a lot more, either using more of it or in more circumstances than people who are not romantic. So she was like saying, for example, if I'm, dressed down, I'm in a hoodie or whatever, and I've still got, bold lipstick and a bold wing liner, it looks normal on me. Whereas if she were to do it, she said that she'd just feel really sort of off and not herself, which was so interesting to me because makeup is something that I've always enjoyed. All of these things tie together, and it's all about a cohesive look. It's about your personality, your coloring, your body structure, your body geometry, everything coming together into a holistic image of who you are and what you're putting out into the world. Like, oh, love it so much. Most of it I was just like nodding through it, but I just thought, you know what? Had I done this like years and years ago, I would have, it would have saved me so much money, first of all. And that is one of the major benefits of doing a clothing personality analysis with House of Colour, because firstly, you'll save time. So when you walk into a shop, you'll know what you're going for. You'll know the kinds of colours. If you walk in, and that's how I find myself shopping. Like now, instead of like fighting against what I already know, I am empowered with the knowledge of what shapes are going to work and what pieces of clothing are going to work for my specific body type. Not what's trending, not what everyone else is telling you to wear, not what you're being brainwashed with on Instagram. Because hey, look, no judgment, you guys. I too was brainwashed, and hence the beigification of my wardrobe. We are so either consumed by or just exposed to social media, and everything that we see is just this very either watered down or very reductive image of what it means to be a woman in this world. I love the fact that House of Colour has these different, 23 clothing personality types, which you can embrace like with no shame. And you can just say, you know what, those clothes are just not even going to work for me. They work for that person, that's great. But I realistically can't embody what they have. And so I can't wear the same things. But then I'm aware of what will work in my real life, practical day to day. I am using that time and my money so much more effectively. Less of my money is being spent on things that are just going to sit at the bottom of my wardrobe, never being worn or not being worn enough. I've cut down on my shopping time. I know exactly what I want. I know exactly what's going to look better on me. It's just amazing, you guys. You feel like you almost have this superpower. Like everything is just so on point with your shopping process that it just makes this whole thing so worthwhile. I mean, think of how much money is wasted on clothing. Even on average, it's like whatever, a couple of hundred. To instead save that money to invest in just one session where you find out your clothing personality, and that sticks with you for the rest of your life. That is the blueprint. It will very rarely change a lot. It will only shift a little if you're entering a different phase of your life, you've got a change in your lifestyle, or you're at a different stage of your life. It might adapt a little, but on the whole, you will just have that clothing personality. And yeah, combined with the color analysis, you'll end up with a wardrobe where you can literally just mix and match different things, and you can walk in there with confidence knowing, okay, everything here is going to work with everything else, not just in the colors, but also in the cuts, in the overall vibe and the style. With this process through House of Color, it's not that prescriptive. It's about the overall vibe and the tone of your look. Sarah kept going back to that, like, don't get too hung up on the nitty-gritty details. You don't have to absolutely tick off every one of these things on this list. It's just about that general sense of your clothing personality. And if you're still stuck, or if you want some guidance, they offer these additional services as well to really just be there for you and support you. And that's what it's about. I've really loved learning more about the House of Color process, interacting with the community. It's just such a supportive, non-judgmental, empowering group of women, like majority women. Obviously men can also get this done. It's kind of piqued Hubsy's curiosity. So I don't know if he also wants to get it done. I've said to him, like, it'd be really cool, but he's like, no, I know what I am. You know how men are. We then went through certain items of clothing and accessories that I bought. So I took each of them out, tried it on, told her why I liked it. And then she gave me feedback on those things at the end, which again, all tied into my clothing personality. Yeah, I've not gone through the whole book, by the way, you guys. There's still so much in here. I hope that you guys get a chance to do this. If you have had it, let me know in the comments what your clothing personality was, or even if you've had a color analysis session, let me know what you got. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you soon. Mwah!